Hello, Internet. Gino, that Pinguino Grieco here again with another episode of Deep Listens. I am joined, as always, by Billy, the Wheels of Steel Rothert.
Don't know what that means, but I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to talking about the story part of Mirror's Edge.
And I am also joined by Peter, the Third Harmony Busby.
Okay, yeah, I'll take third. Eventually I'll work my way up to number one. Fifth Harmony's an up-and-coming band. I like where their head's at. Their collective heads.
Their Hydra head collection.
Cut off one harmony, two more sprout in its place.
Oh no, 7 harmonies. 6 harmonies? No, because you only get +1 each time. So
yeah, when you cut off harmonies. 1, you're at 4, then you're +2, now you're 6.
Yep. Well, I'm glad Ty Dolla $ign can get mentioned in this podcast. Does he have any other songs other than... I'm sure he does, right?
I'm sure he does, yeah.
Do we have to feature him now? Do we have to
bring him?
Can we bring him? Ty Dolla $ign?
Yeah, I feel like we have to. Is it featured now? Because we said his name?
He gets his.
Well, no, it's not DJ Khaled. If we mention DJ Khaled, he has like Beetlejuice.
Oh, no. There's
DJ Khaled!
There's a sick beat under our podcast now. All of a sudden, there's a lot of rappers here. And it's only in the summertime. Only in the summertime does that work.
Brings along Fat Joe, Rick Ross.
Don't invite
Akon
Rick.
Shows up.
Wait, Rick Ross?
What's Akon?
Is that what you just said?
Yeah, Rose. Rick Ross.
All right.
Akon pops up out of nowhere. So, if you couldn't tell, this is our Mirror's Edge story-focused episode. Our first half, you probably just checked out, hopefully, on Mirror's Edge's mechanics.
You obviously did.
Obviously, you should do it every time.
You listen to it once in the morning to start your day, every day.
Every day. Just, that Mirror's Edge discussion. So touching, so riveting. And now I get more? Oh, wow. So, Mirror's Edge story. Once again, you can get in touch with the podcast if you have feedback at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com, or deeplistens.libsyn.com. We got comment sections, y'all. So, the story of Mirror's Edge. As we mentioned before, Faith, she's a runner. She's in a dystopian city where everyone likes to paint things white and then have accenting colors that are mainly primary.
Tasteful. So tasteful.
Yet authoritarian.
Yes.
And her sister Kate is framed for a gruesome murder.
She's also a blue. Interesting family tension there.
Yes. She's a blue. She is a cop. She is the fuzz. And so that is pretty much what we're given for the story for most of it. It is Faith trying to solve the murder so that her sister can be exonerated. She works with a dude in her ear who's like her friendly runner buddy.
Mercury. His full name is Mercury.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
I liked it way better when I thought it was like mercenary.
Nah, it's Mercury.
Mercury, like the winged boots god, whatever.
Okay.
Who's the messenger of the gods?
God of messenger, yeah.
I was thinking like the liquid metal.
Well, that too. But
which is also called Quicksilver. Budunch.
Did you know that plutonium was named after the planet?
And not the god?
No, it's weird to me that like uranium also named after the planet.
Well, I mean, then by proxy they're named after the god.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
Then you have Celeste, or Cell. She's another runner who's kind of your buddy. Who's the guy with like the hair flip who's just a jerk? Who's
Jackknife?
Yeah, Jackknife.
Jackknife, yeah.
There's some other runner who like gets you guns once.
Yeah, he drops off a rifle. I think that's all he does, though. Is
pretty much.
Is there something?
What?
Is it like Griggs? It's something with a lot of G's, if I remember right.
Biggs? Maybe it's
not
Biggs.
No. It's not Biggs.
I know it's not Biggs. It might be Craig.
Who knows, man?
It's got to be a name that's just like single word. It means a whole lot of stuff.
Like Faith.
My name's Omega.
Effie. And then there's just Kate.
And then there's Kate. And Kate. And her police superior, I guess, her commissioner.
Boss.
Wilson?
Yeah, it's Wilson. Name.
So, what did you guys think of, like, we've mentioned basically all of the characters in Mirror's Edge, other than the nameless, faceless cops who you just beat to death or shoot to death
or
avoid, but you probably don't avoid them. What did you guys think of just the characters in general? I found Faith to be basically, I knew nothing about her other than she wanted to save her friend and liked free running, and she was from the wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah, you get some parent backstory, but it doesn't really go anywhere.
It sets up at least the tone of the game, which is that we know what Faith's character does for a living, which is traffic information in ways that cannot be monitored, right? And so we find out, and I might be reading too deeply into this, but in the beginning of the game, you see this cutscene that's in sort of a comic style drawing, which I think was really cool, of her and her sister, and they're on one side of a riot, and they're on sort of the civilian side. You know, they're throwing rocks and beer bottles at the police. And I think this is before this information seizure had happened. And it was this transitional period in history. So, you know, let's say we're in the game like 20 years or, you know, something prior to the events of the game. There was a lot of civilian rioting and protesting to this new information system. This is before they're all runners and stuff. Her parents die in a fray like that, and that inspires. Her mother does. Her dad, I think, kills himself.
I don't know. He's still alive when she runs away from home. I know that.
Well, either way, parents just disappear one way or the other, and those events inspire both Kate and Faith to pursue the path that they pursued to start the game.
Yeah, and that origin story, I feel, is enough to give her motivation, but it doesn't make her endearing to me, unfortunately. It's an origin story. Just like I don't care about Kratos in God of War. Like, you can tell me that the ashes on him are the ashes of his wife and child, but it doesn't really make me empathize with the dude what's ripping harpies in half. And just like that, Faith's parents being killed in a riot doesn't really help me with her free running.
You've always been so pro harpy, Gino. God, you're biased.
That's true. I do like harpies. They've got wings. What more do you want? They're part bird, part lady.
They'll follow you to the ends of the earth to punish you, too.
Oh, no.
They never let their prey escape.
Is that why Kratos just rips their arm wings off all the time?
I guess, yeah. Because he's kind of a tool. But yeah, I mean, like you said, she's basically a cipher. You know, her most discernible characteristic is an eye tattoo. Like, that's not really great character building, really.
Yeah. There's a lot. She's got that eye tattoo, and sometimes in the world there's that eye tattoo, and it lets you know that there's a collectible nearby.
Yeah.
But a lot of the things she's saying, like, she might have 30 or 40 lines of dialogue in the entire game, and many of those lines are, I need to get the blank.
Yeah.
I need to escape from the blank.
Is that what that symbol means, that there's a stash nearby?
Yeah.
Yes. That if you see a red spray painted her face.
I didn't pick up on that.
What?
What? There was a collectible that you didn't fully take advantage of?
No, like, I found as many of them as I could, but I didn't pick
you could.
As
I didn't
possible,
get every one.
Right? What? Should we
All right.
the podcast? Like,
this
can
is
go
Steve
to
Listens. You've been listening to this show. Thank you. We're at the end of the podcast. Billy learned a lesson about moving on with his life.
That's what the point of the whole endeavor was. We've accomplished it.
This was a long exercise.
Oh.
This is a problem that I have with Mirror's Edge because
published in Psychology Today.
I felt like I didn't have the time I needed to search for all the collectibles. I wanted to, but sometimes there were just people shooting at me, so I couldn't explore everywhere I wanted to go.
Well, so basically your need to find all the items was put in direct conflict with your desire to not snap necks, and so you just decided to let the items go.
It wasn't the choice you made.
You know what? You made the right choice, Billy.
It just means I'm gonna play the game a second time, do a genocide run, and get all the collectibles.
Get every fucking collectible there is.
That run's really different. I hear if you kill all of them, the music gets different, and Flowey is way different in that run.
Yeah. I hear he makes an appearance in Mirror's Edge, yeah. Even though the game was published.
I see that you like this shit.
Can we, as much as I love knocking Billy, and we will circle back to that, I'm sure, later in the podcast, Can we talk about couriers for a second?
Sure.
So I think I've basically 3 examples for this thesis, but I feel like couriers assume an outsized importance in science fiction genres specifically, right? So here are my 3 examples, one of which is in sci-fi. Remember that Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie where he's a bike messenger?
Yeah, it's called Premium Rush.
Premium Rush, yeah. I just wanted to point that out. Another courier movie. Then you have, these are both novels. You have Johnny Mnemonic, also a terrible movie. You should read the short story. It's a lot better. And then you have Yours Truly. I'm not saying myself. That's the character's name. Yours Truly, or YT, in Snow Crash. Great book. Everybody should read it. But I'm curious, and I have my guesses, but I'll throw it out to you guys. Why do you think couriers are so important in sci-fi, or just, why we like couriers at large? Why they make interesting protagonists?
Okay, Billy, you go first because I have a thing.
Yeah, I'm basically just winging it. But I feel, yeah, I mean,
like a harpy.
If I had to guess, I would think that the idea of a courier, someone who transfers information, is glamorous in a similar way that I'm not having a very good time formulating this thought, but there's a certain glamour to being a messenger, being the person who brings news, being the herald.
Okay.
Someone who like brings tidings, whether they're good or as a harbinger of bad information. There's something maybe it's like definitive. That's not the word I'm looking for.
Well, it's an authority that comes not from direct power but from knowledge.
Yeah.
And I feel like that might be a little bit more relatable than some sort of dominant physical presence.
I wasn't quite going with that. I think it was more like, take back to the old days where mail was 100% like the only way you could communicate long distance. People would await mail couriers because they would know, like, I'm going to get some mail. Like, this is kind of a big deal. In a courier, people are sort of waiting on your actions.
Yeah, it commands attention.
Yeah. That's better. That's better. Like, it commands attention.
Just like parkour.
Yeah, so for me, I can't necessarily say why there's an infatuation with couriers overall, but in this game specifically, I feel like that infatuation with couriers is maybe emblematic of this game's larger infatuation with kind of 2006, 2007, 2008 politics.
Okay. Lay it on.
I feel like this game is very much made in the shadow of the Patriot Act being enacted.
Okay.
The knowledge that your communications can be monitored by some government agency that is claiming to do so in service of protecting everyone and the public interest and peace without necessarily protecting the ideals of a free society, a truly free society. And in this game's construction, there's literally like some supercomputers that are watching everyone and keeping track of the entire grid on the city. And the only information that can be the only way to transfer information that is not monitored is through runners. So couriers have an outsized importance. Parkour experts suddenly become the most important people in the city because they are the only people who are not under direct control.
Parkour is an essential employment skill all of a sudden.
Yes. Only in this world in which all knowledge is controlled, could a stupid idea like Project Icarus exist. Only if you make these contrivances would it make sense to build a gigantic underground facility in which you train cops to do wall runs.
In parkour.
Yes.
Yeah, Gino, I think that's a fair point. I think it's a great point, really. I think it overshadows the point I'm going to make, but I'm going to make my overshadowed point anyway. I think it also, we've talked a lot about sort of the fantasies of competence or the fantasies of self-reliance that video games sort of engender and promote. And I think this is another case where sort of it's a fantasy of self-employment. It's a fantasy of individual competence. Whereas, what can the courier rely on? Just their wits and their parkour. And I think that's part of it, is that you're not a cog in some sort of corporate machine. You're self-employed. You're on the edge. You're on the fringes of society. And I think that's that's appealing in a lot of the ways I think we've already discussed a few times on this podcast.
Yeah.
On the mirror's edge, cue the music.
Oh,
dun, 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 dun,
how the title
dun,
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so just to back up some of that claim about it kind of referencing post kind of 9/11 American politics, anytime you're in an elevator, there are kind of scrolls of either news or advertisements that pop up on the walls, and some of the news feeds are things like, is someone you know a runner and how to tell?
Yeah.
Do they have scuff marks? Do they have bruises that they can't explain? Do they have calloused hands? And
are they unreliable?
Yes. It kind of reads like, how can you tell if someone's a terrorist, or how can you tell if someone's a problem element? You need to, if you see something, say something.
There was even a threat level yellow moment too,
yes,
if I remember right.
There is a threat level orange, and I think it's orange or red, and they break down like, what do these mean? And it's like, we think that everything's fine. There might be a terror attack. There might be a terror attack soon. We know who's going to do it, and we know it's soon. It's happening. And when they break that down, I'm like, oh, okay, exactly.
Yeah.
Like post 9/11 America.
Yeah.
Terror levels. They have the demonization of the runners and explaining it away. And then you're, of course, as a runner, reading this, and it's supposed to be kind of comical. Like, these people are going to rat you out because you have calloused hands, and it's supposed to seem kind of ridiculous.
What's the biggest threat to your child? Running.
Running, yes. And all those moments, I think, really lend the sense that, yep, this is a game of a moment. And that interpretation of the narrative actually did a lot more for me. That did a lot more to add to the game's overall story heft than anything the main narrative was trying to do. Because I didn't connect with Faith for the most part. Saving Kate, whatever. Like, a lot of the people... And this was another thing that I had with a problem I had with the game in general, is that when you have a cast that is like 7 characters, that means... Or 8. I guess there's... Rope Burn, bodyguard.
Fucking Rope Burn.
You got all the different runners. You've got Kate. You've got the cop guy.
You got the mayor.
Cop. You've got the mayor, who you never meet, but he's there.
Yeah.
And then you've got Jackknife, who's neither runner nor blue. What is he?
He's Jackknife.
When you've got that limited a cast,
Jackknife is a runner. He's just not with.
He's an ex.
He's an ex-runner.
Yeah.
I think he's doing the same thing, but not with Faith and Merc's crew.
Okay. He's living on the Mirror's Edge.
Sure, whatever.
The Mirror's Edge of the Mirror's Edge.
Yes.
Fine.
So when you've got that kind of limited cast, you kind of get a Chekhov's gun situation where it's like, well, there's like 7 people who can do this nefarious shit. Which one is it?
Yeah. You're basically playing Clue.
Exactly. And as soon as I saw Celeste, and it's like, let me train you how to fight. You're pretty good. I'm like, you're going to fucking betray me, aren't you?
You Jennifer
You're the one.
Looking motherfucker.
You're the only... 3 characters in this game have character models that they made in 3D. This seems like a game where they're not going to have a lot of characters. You're going to betray me, aren't you? Yep. Jackknife, you seem kind of dodgy. You're at like the center.
Jackknife.
Your name's Jackknife, and you keep going, hey, Faithy. What's up, baby? You're clearly a bad man. You couldn't be written any more bad if you tried. And so I just found the game to be very predictable as a result.
Yeah.
Like, when you have these situations where there's like 3 people who have the ability, like, who have been introduced that have any sort of ability to do anything, and the game's pretty short, it can only be one of these people who betrays you. Otherwise, they're going to have to invent a character whole cloth out of nowhere in the name of surprise, and that's worse.
Yeah, it's 100% worse.
Yeah.
So,
I think to sort of defend my first claim that Jackknife is actually a runner is that isn't Jackknife and Celeste revealed to be on the same team?
Yeah.
So, like, Celeste is still a runner, but she's, like, not working for Merc and Faith's side. They're doing some other side. And the police officers also have runner cops.
You can't be a runner Look, you can do parkour and not be a runner. Being a runner means living on the mirror's edge and delivering this information where it needs to go.
Excuse me. Sorry.
You need to get these tattoos.
Yeah, they all those weird like block.
You need to be edgy and wear fingerless gloves.
You need these fingerless gloves.
Cargo pants.
These earpieces.
Billy, this is going to be a little insider, but I have to ask you now. We brought it up. Do you remember that kid in philosophy class who used to wear fingerless gloves to class? Do you remember that kid?
Yeah, I do know that kid.
Is he like an alright kid?
I'm not going to say his name because I think that kid actually was my commentator when I did my methods conference.
Okay.
So
that's the only thing I remember about him.
I had to have
lots of rings.
I had to have some extended dialogue with that person.
He wasn't wearing his fingerless gloves. It was just rings on like all his fingers.
Okay, I was hoping that it was like when he had a point he really needed to make, he put on the fingerless gloves to contain his power. But no, like it was just a constant thing.
Like he stopped for a second and was like, wait, let me pull these bad boys on, and then kept going.
Yeah, but no.
He's just wearing them all the time.
So he didn't also have a trench coat and sunglasses,
He wore a lot of black and shaved his head. Not
parkour.
Not shave head, but like, kept hair real short because it takes less effort to maintain yourself if you just don't have enough hair to do anything with.
That's true. And he was not a Pokemaster, correct?
I don't know, but he seemed like he probably played Yu-Gi-Oh or something.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. All right, so now that we're done with fingerless gloves,
sorry,
and the
I had to bring it up.
That's fine. Makes a lot of sense. What did you guys think of like the general setting? Like, did it have any impression on you?
I have always had parkour fantasies for myself.
So have I.
Like that kind of thing seems so cool, and urban settings are attractive to me because I live in a city, and combat mechanics are attractive to me because I also have a black belt and like I've trained in martial arts. So these kind of things should have been like exactly what I wanted. I think the delivery took some of the glamour away from me because like a lot of these things could have done a lot better. But if you mix urban environment with parkour mechanics with cool disarms and combat sequences, like this should have been a great game. I think the combat sequences were kind of weak and the parkour was more limited than it let on. And then we found out that we actually couldn't explore the urban mechanics because this game was actually a lot more linear than it let on to be.
True. There was also buried in the game and buried in some of the stuff you were talking about, Gino, in terms of surveillance, a criticism of technology, which, I always appreciate. And you see there's a similar move in Johnny Mnemonic, oddly enough. But the idea that when technology becomes unreliable or co-opted, that the response is to, in Johnny Mnemonic's word, go crude. And that's basically what they do here. They go crude. You can't trust email. You can't trust text messaging. So let's revise the Pony Express just with parkour now. And I found that one a little bit more compelling as well. Beyond the narrative itself, which, like you said, was weak. But this idea that at a certain point it might be advantageous to go crude in this way when people have forgotten largely how to do it.
Now, I want to reveal one of the things that I said I would mention in this half of the podcast.
Do it, baby.
This is part of the reason why I want to go back and collect all the runner stashes and stuff, because they unlock concept art. More and more concept art of the game. Like after you beat the game, you get a certain amount of concept art and you get access to like the music and you can listen to the soundtrack on the disc and whatever. Mm-hmm. But you get concept art and there's descriptions with each of them. And I actually read all of them. And if you didn't, then you missed a couple of cool things. One that I'll mention here, I guess I'll just go ahead and throw them both out so we don't forget. One is that the courier bags, the stash bags, in earlier versions of the game played a way more critical role. Like you were actually carrying courier bags around and like doing the sick tosses and throws to people. Apparently this was intended for the game, but they had to get cut out for developmental reasons. So this courier bag was reduced to a collectible like sort of a collectible that had no impact on the actual gameplay, except for cutscenes where you just magically you had this bag the whole time. Yeah, all right, whatever, fuck that. It got reduced from a critical point of narrative or gameplay advancement to a collectible only because of some kind of developmental cut. Also, this game feels a lot like a first-person shooter, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, it feels like two games that got slammed together.
The answer should have just been yes to make it easier.
Yes,
okay, yes,
Billy.
Yes, Billy.
Nothing has ever been more true.
And I'm handsome, right?
Yes.
No.
Great. In early concept development for Faith, before they picked out Faith as the main character, she had a gun.
Tell me she was a space marine.
No. But she was way more Asian and ethnic looking, and then they kind of whited her up a little bit when she became the main character.
I think I remember that. Wasn't there's probably a controversy of some sort around that. I think I remember
overestimating how culturally conscious 2008's game.
You're right.
They straight up said, like, in the description of this concept, like, yeah, we made her more like Eurasian looking. We decided to go with the more Eurasian look for her, and I was like, okay, fine, whatever.
Sure.
So there were other runners and more characters that were developed for this game, but they also got cut too. And when they were making the game, they didn't know that Faith Asian girl was going to be the protagonist. They just sort of conceptually drafted up like 8 or 10 cool looking runners and had cool stories for them. And then as more concept art was being developed, the Faith stuff looked really good. They're like, that's going to be our main character. We found our protagonist. And it just sort of became Faith. Like, it wasn't intended from the start to have her as the main character.
Yeah, and that's something that explanation of the development process calls to mind how slapdash sometimes writing in games can be, and how late into the process some of this stuff can be determined. When something like, oh, this person had a really... Because it's such a collaborative medium, a writer saying, well, this is who I want my main protagonist to be, and this is what I think they should do. Ultimately, if you have a developer who wants to design, who has this game design, this mechanic, you can't have Faith be a desk jockey if the mechanic is parkour. She can't be, there's a whole lot of roles she can't fill. If you want her to look a certain way or be from a certain place, and it turns out that the concept art is way better for this other character model, all of a sudden the protagonist changes just because, well, the art was a lot better in this direction. And so that kind of stuff can really impact development midway through that you might not necessarily expect. You might say, well, this is bad writing, and it might just be, hey, this is a product that has like 7 different streams that are happening all simultaneously, and they all have to come together, and oh god, the writer has to make all of this make sense somehow. Why is she shooting all these cops? Why does she have to act like these cops? It's weird that they're pissed at her, even though she keeps murdering them. I don't know, maybe she... I don't know.
So
she just is.
It makes me wonder if this game had infinity time. I don't know. That's probably a bad way to describe it, because you could say any game gets better if you just give them all the time they need to finish it.
I disagree with that statement.
What?
That if you give something infinity time, it will get better.
Okay, fine.
Sometimes if you give someone infinity time, they just go down into a rabbit hole and it comes out way worse.
Fair enough. But I haven't played Mirror's Edge Catalyst, but I hope, since that game had a fucking long time to come out, like 8-9 years, they better have done the shit right this time. I haven't played it, so I don't know, but I'm probably going to. Sure, it's probably gorgeous, but are they going to address some of the things that we're talking about now? Maybe we should have released this podcast a year ago.
Yeah, I'm sure they would have dialed in. Like, oh, we should make it more like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Billy was right. Fuck.
But it begs the question. I mean, again, this is another unfair question, but why don't I ask it? Like, what they cut it for? The game's not, like, long. Like, what they needed to create space and have more time for that these people and mechanics had to go. But again, there's no way for us to possibly know that.
And it might not. It might not be to cut things to make time for other things. Sometimes it is. We have this kernel of an idea, and it's just not executing. We're doing this bag throwing thing, and all of a sudden that means the worlds are way bigger, and we don't have the memory to render them as big as they'd need to be.
Yeah.
Or we have this mechanic, but this now necessitates we make an AI character who is running along, and it's not coming together. This AI character is not smart enough.
Yeah.
It's breaking up the flow.
It seems like so much was left on the cutting room floor. Like a whole other cast of characters. There was a whole level that got cut. Like a whole prison level that got cut.
Ooh, prison level. I bet there's some sick parkour in prison. Like, what?
I don't know.
I wouldn't expect that there's sick parkour in like an abandoned factory either. But...
I feel like I stepped on your train of thought, Gino. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I like I lost it anyway, but a lot of I guess what I was saying is, Pete, sometimes the cuts are not in service of another thing so much as they are an admission that this pathway we're going down is not a fruitful one.
Yeah,
like for example, if you were making a game where the most fun was parkouring over things, but you only maybe had enough designs to last for like 2 or 3 levels, maybe you make a bunch of combat sections.
Yeah.
And that makes the game longer.
Let's draw some comparisons between other games that came out around this time.
Could have happened.
Like, Assassin's Creed came out, and Assassin's Creed had an open world, but it also had loading screens. And so did Prototype, which is the other game that I bookend. Like you could go indoors and stuff, but you had loading screens, and if you went to different parts of the Prototype takes place on Manhattan Island, and it's like very specifically designed to be Manhattan. And because it's that one sandbox and it's not that big as far as video game scale is concerned, it could just be all rendered. Mirror's Edge was like every single level was just entirely rendered from the start of the game. So maybe Gino's got all,
There are loads between each level. Loads. Anytime there are loads between levels, and then anytime a cutscene's playing,
elevators
they're probably
too.
Loading in the background. And every elevator is
every
also
elevator.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I take it back then. God, like I was trying to give
this
Mirror's
game's
Edge
super
some credit.
pretty. Like
it is pretty, but maybe Gino was onto something that they just couldn't. Maybe they just didn't have the memory for it. They couldn't make something load like this that they wanted to. They had to shrink the world for some developmental reason. And
I think it's important. At this point in time, in 2008, EA was in a very weird place as a company. I believe this was still during the reign of John Riccitiello. Oh, this was... Yeah, I think this was mid John Riccitiello. Yeah, so from 2007 to 2013. So during this time, EA, they started a thing called the EA Partners Program, where they started giving money to smaller, kind of B-tier products. They'd give them like AAA money. And so that led to the creation of things like Brutal Legend from Double Fine. It led to the creation of, I think, if I remember correctly, Rock Band was an EA Partners game at first.
Nice move.
But there were a lot of games that, or I guess like, a handful of games that were created during this time, and EA was putting money in a whole lot of different baskets instead of saying, these are our 3 franchises, this is what we do, this is our bread and butter. And so at that time, they were taking a lot more risks as a company, but it also horrendously backfired on them for the most part. A lot of these games were cool concepts, but did not sell especially well. So I wouldn't be surprised if this game was given enough budget to be made, but not necessarily enough budget to succeed.
Do you know what the figures were for Mirror's Edge?
On budget?
No, on sales.
Sales? Not off the top of my head. No, I can look that up, though.
I'll take a look.
Actually, game sales are really opaque now because there's sales across multiple platforms, and game sale reporting is really freaking hard to find now. Especially if a game doesn't sell well, because then the companies don't self-report.
Yeah, they'll bury it.
Well. Yep. So I'm not sure. It sold well enough for it to get a sequel, but it got a sequel 8 years later. So that kind of tells you little column A, little column B.
Just based on Wikipedia, I'm just going to bite off Wikipedia for now. The developers initially projected a total of 3 million copies, but in February they had sales of only over 1 million. So not what you projected.
So that, if the game came out in November, that was like its whole holiday season surge.
Yeah.
It was expecting.
Yeah, but they didn't.
And it didn't. And tomorrow never came, unfortunately.
It's true.
But I think that it's some of that could be budget, some of that could be design, and it seems like, based on playing this game, it seems like it's kind of two different games clobbed together. There's this first-person shooter, and then there's this kind of fun platformer.
Yeah.
And it's trying to do both, and it's good at one of them, and the other one's kind of forgettable, unfortunately.
I just can't think of a way that the game would have an urban, modern environment if we didn't have... This is going to sound like, if we didn't have guns, it wouldn't really feel modern. Right? We can make a game like this where you are a courier, but you're avoiding Indiana Jones swinging axes and stuff, but like that wouldn't happen in an urban city.
I mean, you could set this in Japan. Done. There aren't guns.
Or you could just have guns, but you just can't use them. I mean...
Yeah. I mean, I found this game a lot more fun when you... I found dealing with the cops with their face masks a little bit more fun than the cops in the helicopters with guns. Like, when you were being chased by actual people and you could avoid them, instead of stationary turret men with guns...
Yeah, it becomes a pursuit problem.
Yeah, the pursuit... I found pursuit when the enemy did not have a ranged attack to be more engaging than dodging these pylons that killed you if you stood still for too long. I mean,
they just killed you anyway. They had randomly amazing shots.
Yeah, it was weird, but at least I think if you set it in, England, set it in Japan, set it in a city where, hey, we're this authoritarian regime. We took everyone's guns. There are no guns. We don't need guns. You can set it, there's a lot of ways to do that if you felt like it.
Yeah.
Fiction's a heck of a thing.
True. Is parkour still a thing? I feel like parkour had its moment. There was that James Bond movie. What was that, Casino Royale? Where there was a whole bunch of parkour. I'm sure it's still around. People still do
Urban
it.
Ninja.
It's not in the United States.
No.
It's a lot bigger in Europe just because I think literally the architecture is more conducive.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't do parkour in Philly. I mean, despite it being a big city, it just wouldn't work.
There is a famous parkour person named David Bell who starred in some action films but also developed it as a martial art. A little bit of backstory here is that, so imagine this. Every single style of martial art... No, you're laughing, but there's some really important pieces here to this puzzle, is that every single martial art should say, and if not, I sort of question the art part of its martial art, says you should avoid combat first and use your skills as a last resort, right? And so when parkour was sort of realized to be, this is actually could be sort of like a martial arts scheme, we're just focusing on that, be really good at getting away so you don't have to fight, right? So many things like Taekwondo, Shotokan, Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, Aikido, Tai Chi, whatever, all these styles, they would say, do your best to avoid combat. Only when you have no other choice, then do you fight, right? And parkour...
What if you were way better at not getting into combat?
Yeah, what if you were just really, really good at not fighting and running?
Slid across the roof of this car instead.
That's not a martial arts system, though.
Then you run up a wall and punch the guy in the face.
Then it becomes a martial arts system.
I think it falls in the flowchart of martial arts because every single one starts with try to avoid the fight first. And parkour says that's where we're going to, focus.
All right. I mean,
and then arm bars. Lots of arm bars.
Maybe parkour would do well, like all kinds of martial arts styles, borrow from each other. Maybe parkour should then take some footwork from Muay Thai with some disarms from Aikido and say, hey, now we're a real martial art. We like to do disarms.
The sensibility of Krav Maga.
That's exactly what we don't want.
The most brutal parkour you've ever seen in your life. I ran up this wall and ripped a guy's ear off.
I feel like that's not what I was going for.
That's what's happening in that's why when Faith disarms someone, they stay down.
Yeah, they never get back up.
They never get back up.
Because they Mike Tyson'd somebody and just got an ear?
Yep, all gone.
Okay,
so we've discussed some of the martial arts stuff. We've discussed the setting. One last thing I want to hit before we finish. What did you guys think of the conclusion? So when Jackknife has the betrayal that he was always going to have, did you feel anything when she saved Kate?
No. And then they just like sort of walk off into the sunset together.
Yeah. Because for me, like the moment where you get to the top of this tower and you see the supercomputers or whatever that are surveilling the city, it felt like such a non-moment to me. It felt like just yet another combat arena when this is supposed to be the moment where you're smashing the infrastructure that is oppressing the city. And it felt punchless.
I want to give Mirror's Edge a little bit of credit because I feel like I recall making this criticism of Mass Effect, that they're trying to deal with all these sort of super huge calamitous occurrences to lend drama to a narrative that inherently doesn't really have that much. So I want to give Mirror's Edge a little bit of credit for trying to make this story highly personal, right? It really is about Faith trying to rescue her sister Kate. But now I feel like they've went so far in the opposite direction that they've lost the more interesting dystopian sort of fight the man bits. And what really makes this problematic is I don't give a shit about Kate.
Yeah, and they kind of try to have their cake and eat it too, because all of your motivation is, I need to save Kate, I need to exonerate or just save her, just get her and save her.
Yeah.
But in trying to save Kate, you inadvertently destroy the information system that governs the city. You directly oppose the mayor. You do all this stuff that completely destabilizes the city. Oops, by accident.
Yeah, just like, I tripped and fell into these servers. Oh, they're broken now.
It'd kind of be like if the Master Chief was like constantly trying to find Cortana and oops, I accidentally gave the Covenant back their bomb. I guess I'm a hero.
Yeah.
Whoopsies. And I think that's actually what my problem was you're focusing so much on Kate that when I'm finally in this climactic scene where I'm in the center of the city, I'm in the high rise, this is the mayor, and it seems like the mayor is kind of an allegory for some kind of dictator. He's probably way worse than a mayor. And, here's his computers, and I'm going to blow them up, and it's going to save everything. But I'm blowing them up so that it opens an elevator so I can get to Kate. And the larger significance of what that could mean for the city and for the runners and for everything is kind of left up in the air.
And now that you say it, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, how is a mayor doing this? Like, is just this city totalitarian? Is the entire nation like this? It has to be countrywide.
I took it to mean that this city this is a dystopia where this city is like the size of a country.
It's like huge. Gotham City, where it's really a city, but no, it's actually the whole world.
Yeah, because like the governor is not like stepping in and be like, listen, like civil rights and stuff, you can't be doing this.
Yeah, and I took it because there are so many languages throughout the game. Like things are written in Chinese, things are written in Japanese, things are written in English. I think there might have been one or two more languages. I took this as kind of this giant multicultural all city. So like somehow in the New York, future.
Tokyo, and Beijing have just grown until they've all merged together.
It's not quite cyber-apocalyptic Neo-New York, but it's like one standard deviation back towards reality.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So it's Neo-New York.
Sure, fine. And look, I want to push back a little bit because I think despite the predictability, despite the way it was delivered wasn't so great, you asked a specific question, how did you guys like the ending? Like, how was the finale? You asked us that question, and I actually liked the ending. Now, they presented us with a choice, but there really wasn't a choice. Jackknife's character explained sort of why he did all this. He said, look, I made a choice. Our lifestyle was a lifestyle of being persecuted and hunted for what we were. I chose to pick what I believe to be the winning side. And Faith, you can't keep doing this. You cannot keep living your life like this. And he threw out living on the mirror's edge or whatever. It's a fucking corny bullshit line. But at the end of the game,
Faithy.
Yeah, at the end of the game, you make a choice. You sort of have this illusion of making a choice, but it's still a choice in the narrative scheme, right? Faith makes a choice to say, no, I'm going to keep doing this because I think this is right. And she has, I guess, the option to surrender to the guards or jump into a fucking helicopter and vault kick Jackknife out the other side.
Wait, what happens if you surrender?
You don't. Like, that's not an option. You get a game over screen.
Oh, so there isn't a choice.
That's why I said there was like an illusion of choice, but as far as the narrative is concerned, Faith was given a choice by Jackknife to either stop the life that she was living or say, no, I'm going to keep doing this, and she chose, I'm going to keep doing this, which sort of like is very like stayed very
Badass.
Truthful. No, it's very truthful to
very parkour.
The narrative of this game, which is I am moving forward, and this is a forward momentum based scheme, right? So Faith did that, and like the game's narrative sort of stayed true to its gameplay at that moment. I think that was cool.
That reminds me, how the heck when she kicks Jackknife out of that helicopter and then crashes the helicopter, and then her and Kate like hug and talk, where the hell did all those guards go? She dealt with Jackknife. She didn't deal with those guards. There were a lot of guards.
There were 2 guards on the rooftop.
They had guns.
They did have guns, but that helicopter crashed. It either crashed on that rooftop, and they probably got fucked in the helicopter crash, or the helicopter crashed on another rooftop. The camera was spinning when we were inside the helicopter, so we don't really know.
I feel like if you're a runner who's broken into the largest, most secure building in the entirety of the city, gotten to the roof, kicked a dude out of a helicopter, and then crashed. I mean, the blues show up in like 2 seconds when you like walk into a mall.
They've had air support this entire time.
They have had air support. You know what? I'm not gonna. The veracity of this fiction, I don't think. Questioning it will do no one any good.
No. One thing I did like though, and I'll defend them for this, is they didn't wrap it up in like a nice bow. Like Kate and Faith's lives are still pretty much screwed, and I appreciate that.
I appreciated Jackknife being very dead.
Yeah.
I appreciated him being very dead.
Yeah. There's no reason to
Faithy.
Life back.
Him being dead. I appreciated them killing basically all of the runners except for Faith and I guess Celeste lives.
Yeah, you don't see her again.
And that one dude who gives you a sniper rifle.
Yeah, Merc dies.
Merc dies. As he always must.
Yeah.
And then he's replaced by another old white guy.
Yep.
To talk in your ear. Well, on that note, I don't know, does anyone have any other closing thoughts on Mirror's Edge?
I do have one. This game, like I said, is designed for speedrunning, and I think everyone who plays this game casually should experience what it's like for a professional Mirror's Edge player. So you should go like on YouTube or whatever and watch a speed run, or in some cases there are it's hard to say what I'm trying to say, but there's like, if you go search the way a game is played, you can like search a speed run, and then there's like a cinematic run. Some people will create videos of themselves playing a game the way that it's most beautiful or most cinematic to watch. Actually, Halo is a game that has a lot of cinematic runs. People will play that game and they'll do like no miss runs where they will have like perfect accuracy for all these levels, and it's just like it's really talented and beautiful to watch. And so it's almost like a movie. Like the person who's so good at playing Halo 1 Combat Evolved, that he recorded and made it like a film to watch. That kind of game.
I jump out of warthogs. I want the guy who just throws himself out of warthogs at weird angles.
Does Halo has a subtitle?
Yeah,
Halo 1, yeah, Halo Combat Evolved.
Okay.
But either way,
Marines.
I think everyone who plays Mirror's Edge, and I'm sure on their first playthrough won't play it perfectly, should go watch and see what it's like for Mirror's Edge to be played perfectly. And the game becomes radically different, and the story is delivered perfectly, and the momentum is like crisp and clean and beautiful. And yeah, you could say that for just about any game, but it's more so here. Like this game really has that built into its mechanic and its narrative, and someone who can perfectly cinematically play this game brings to light a lot more that this game has to offer.
I'll support that point, Billy. I went on YouTube and I watched some of the time trial runs, like the world record runs, and they're incredible. They're awesome to say. And that's why I think time trial is really, hands down, the best part of this game.
Nice. Any closing thoughts, Pete?
No, I think Billy wrapped it up there pretty nicely. Like I said, I wish this game had been more about stringing together combos, a little bit more open. But, maybe that's some things we'll see from Catalyst. I really don't know anything about it as a new entry in the series.
Yep, I do not know too much about it, though this discussion has made me desire a video game version of Kevin Costner's The Postman, where he does parkour instead of rides a horse. I want Kevin Costner in post-apocalyptic Midwest or Northwest, just kind of sliding across old, destroyed cars and that kind of stuff, like a boss. So if you want to get in touch with the show, go ahead at deeplistenspod, deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com, or deeplistens.libsyn.com. We will read all of your comments. If you did not listen to our first half, just a reminder, the next game we'll be playing is Firewatch. So buy it while, the Steam summer sale is happening.
Yeah, it's like 33% off right now. Play Firewatch with us. Give us some cool commentary. This is my pick, so...
Yeah, you don't always have to be retroactive with your comments, too. Send us some for future games. We can talk about them.
Yeah, just spoil all of Firewatch. Yeah. Don't do that. Do
it. Gino has to read them first. We're protected from spoilers.
No, don't do that. So, thank you for listening. Thank you, Billy.
Thanks, everybody. Mirror's was really good. I sort of echo Pete now and said that I feel like I missed out on this game's prime when it came out, but I'm glad I at least got to go back and play it because this game was really worth playing. We sort of criticized it a lot, but this game was worth playing.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah, always fun to record, and hope you guys had fun listening to it as well. Tune in next time.
All right, thank you, listeners. Till next time. Peace!